Good morning, YouTube. So it's Saturday mornings. Now, for me, Saturday mornings are the day to get together all my health data, like a check-in. I've worked with, over 3,000 clients now in 30 years, and everyone does a weekly check-in. And I also think staying accountable yourself and leading by example is probably the best way to coach. I know from experience when I've worked with other coaches myself that when you get out of that adherence yourself as a coach, maybe you have competed in the past, and then you move away from competing, your actual adherence and all the minutia details that you found really helpful to move the needle forward once you've hit a certain level, they start to diminish and stop. And I think, like, leading by example, showing your clients that you still follow the same standards that you ask them for is massive. Now, every Saturday morning, I will get up and I'll take my health data, I'll do my own photos, I'll have a look at what my weight is. And this helps me stay accountable for another good week, because when it comes to the weekend, I want to see these things either stay very stable in a very good spot or move in a positive direction. What I certainly don't want to do and never have done is just cruise on day by day, Groundhog Day, because that to me is boring. Every single morning, I am super keen to jump out of bed. I think now for about 20, 30 years, I don't think I've ever hit the snooze button. And I think if you're at home and you're having to hit the snooze button, you're having to try and find the motivation to get up, you are not going to have a really motivated, consistent, positive day ahead. So if that's you, perhaps you need to stop gaming or watching Netflix, get to bed a little bit earlier. So when you do wake up, you've hit good numbers in your sleep. And sleep's huge as we get older. And, I've always been one that's never had the best sleep. And I've always looked to just grinding, to be honest. Now, as I've got into my 50s now, grinding doesn't work. It puts you in a hole, because when we were younger, we could like bulldoze ourselves into shape, just train more, get up, do fasted cardio. These things were massive in my 20s and 30s. But actually now sleep quality is far better. And I would tell any of my clients, if you're getting up super early to do cardio and it's disrupting the quality of your sleep, you'd actually burn more body fat, look leaner, have less bloat, inflammation, distension in your stomach, and be in a much more primed position to A, grow muscle, B, lose body fat because you've rested. Unfortunately, as we get older, we can't bulldoze anymore. We have to prioritize sleep. So there are certain things that I've found over the years I found fantastically important with sleep. Hopefully, some of these things, if you've not tried them at home yourself and you fancy using them yourself, and I'll give you my real world experience of myself and also seeing this with the thousands of clients I've worked with over 3 decades. And some of the things that you see about sleep, I think, are fantastic, and some don't really hit. And so every morning I wake up naturally about 5:30, 6 o'clock. Why? How? If you're one of these people that doesn't do that, how do you do that? Now, the best way to improve sleep is getting the circadian rhythm where you are getting up every day at the same time, regardless if it's a day off or the weekend, and you go to bed roughly the same time. If you can do that, that's probably the biggest play. The second biggest play I've found to improve sleep, better than any of these hormones or supplements or hacks, is have a really pitch black dark room. If you haven't got that, get blackout blinds or curtains. It will really help you stay asleep longer, because people often wake in the early hours, and if they see daylight, they're starting to think, should I get up? This can then interfere with you getting sound sleep or just rolling over and catching those last few hours of sleep. So having a dark room has shown in studies that it really will improve your testosterone, because it's improving the quality of your sleep. And as we get older, our hormones, our testosterone is really the magic. It's really the silver bullet. It's the kryptonite that we need to all hang on to. Because if you can keep your testosterone in a really good natural to high level, which in the UK is somewhere between, if you're a man over 40, if you can get your range within the 20 to 30 mark on a blood test, if you had your hormones tested in the UK, that would be a great start point. But with hormones, it isn't just about your total testosterone. It's about the other hormones within that reading. So within your hormones, if you're looking at your testosterone, you want to go and get bloods done. I would highly recommend it. Now, if you can get a blood test done where they take it for you and send away that day, that's far better than any company that will send you it in the post and you take a finger prick and send back. You'll get a better reading, a better blood draw, and the send off for the bloods is instant in most companies. I use a company in Watford called Heal Labs. The owner there is called Clayton. They are online. If you are in that area, message Clayton on Instagram at Heal Labs. He's a great guy. He's done it years, and he can talk you through the right blood tests for you. Now, if you get your blood tests done, what do the results mean? That this is the problem I am having with lots of clients that I've worked with over the years, is men over 40 have now decided that getting blood tests done is in favour. It's almost fashionable because they sit online, everyone's talking about bloods, which is great because now people are managing and looking at their health markers. This is something that I never done when I was in my 20s and 30s. We just listened to what some big guy in the gym said and followed suit without any real health considerations, because you're bulletproof at 20, right? You're going to live forever. Now, when you get into your 40s and 50s, unfortunately, things happen. Life happens. And you'll realise that perhaps you're not, unless you make an effort to be. So having blood tests done is one way of looking into your body. Oh, almost knocked over the old ninja blast. And see what's going on within. Now, it doesn't tell the whole story. So, if you have got issues and you do think there's more going on, or you have a blood test done and you see something that's not favourable in terms of perhaps your cholesterol, your liver, your kidneys, and your heart maybe, it's always worth going to get one of those scanned as well. Now, you can get these done through your GP if they're serious enough, but you'll probably be waiting 2 years on the NHS, or you can get them done privately. And at least initially, in some cases, it would be worth looking at that, because a blood test doesn't tell the whole picture, but it's a very good way of having some backup to the style of your life and to see what you're doing and how it's currently working within. But remember, it's not the be all and end all. Like a scan will tell you far more, or a heart test, than just bloods alone. Anyway, so if you're having a full test done with your bloods and you're in that 20 or 32 range, that's generally very good. But you have to see where your free testosterone is within that total testosterone and your SHBG. Now, both of these want to be in some sort of balance, because often when one's high, the other's low. So having like a good amount of free testosterone can be fantastic to help with gaining more muscle, to being more metabolically active, to put on more muscle. But often if that's very high and it's not in balance, your SHBG, your sex hormone binding globulin reading, will be very low. Now, when that's very low, you'll have no sex drive, pretty much in a nutshell. And then conversely, if it's the other way round and your SHBG is good, your total testosterone's okay, you might feel great in the bedroom department, but your free testosterone may be suppressed. So you're doing all this work in the gym and not seeing a result, and wondering why and blaming your age. And actually, it's your hormone balance. So that's something that can be addressed and certainly fixed. Now, I've been competing as an IFBB Pro in bodybuilding, and I started when I was 19 years of age. I'm 50 now. And for the first 4 or 5 years, I competed in all natural federations. It was my mantra. I was natural for life, one of these guys. Unfortunately, I had a motorbike accident that paralyzed me from the neck down, and I lost all use of my limbs, had to have all my limbs rebuilt with titanium plates and pins, and I had no feeling in any of my limbs, and the only thing I could use was my eyes. And I laid in hospital for a very long time. It took me 2 years to learn to walk again. And obviously in that time, being bedbound and not being able to move a muscle literally, I lost any muscle I had as a natural bodybuilder. So getting out of the hospital bed, learning to walk again and trying to survive and build more muscle was certainly more important than competing again as a natural bodybuilder. And we're not indestructible. Yes, my little cat here, Peanut, is trying to say hello. She's very needy in the morning, and like typical cats, they only want you when they want you. Come on, come and say hello. Are you coming? No. That's women for you, mate. They just decide when it suits them. She's a female cat. It's very attractive, though. I'll probably try and put a little picture of her on screen if she doesn't show her face. Oh, here she comes. Come and say hello. Look at this little blue. Look at this little bit. Hello. Okay. So, she always wants a morning cuddle. So then, if we're getting up and we're tracking our health metrics at least once a week, we're going to have some data as to know what we're doing, and what we are doing is favourable. So every Saturday, what I'll do is I'll take a finger prick blood test, fasted. Make sure you've always drunk, at least 1 or 2 glasses of water, because you do dehydrate overnight. And if you're looking at what your blood sugar is in the morning fasted, which I think is really worth doing at least once a week, you could do it more, just to see if the foods that you're eating, the diet that you're following is not wrecking your insulin sensitivity and you have got good blood sugar reading. If you've got a high blood sugar reading in the morning, it means that the food, the carbohydrates, the diet, the lifestyle that you've lived, perhaps even from yesterday, will still be circulating in your blood. Now, if your blood sugar's high and carbohydrates are still circulating in your blood, your reading will come up high. Now, in the UK, if you get a reader, you want your reading to be somewhere under 5.5 in the morning fasted, and like somewhere between 4 and 5 is fantastically healthy. Now, I'll put on screen what my reading is currently, and it's always stayed fairly well balanced. But if it isn't, there are things that you can do naturally to improve your sensitivity or the uptake and the absorption and the use of carbohydrates in your diet. Because do remember, carbohydrates are not the enemy. They've been really tarnished with a bad light, in my opinion, since going back to the days of Dr. Atkins, that diet. Do you remember that? You probably are young, you probably don't. If you're an OG, that's where the carbohydrates are the enemy kind of stigma come from. And then since then, keto's become popular, and then even the carnivore diet. However, carbohydrates, in my opinion, are fundamental and should be in everyone's diet if you can process them and get your health markers in a place where you should. And you really should be able to process carbohydrates, because carbohydrates form glycogen, and glycogen is one of the fastest ways for you to have cognition in your brain in the morning. Your brain needs glucose. Additionally, your muscles and your liver, they also will derive energy and give it to your body through the use of glucose. It's very easy for you to use glucose as an energy source. So you have more ready available energy through the day, for your life, through workouts, without dipping, unless your blood sugar is in a bad spot and your insulin sensitivity has crashed at some point due to your lifestyle, stress, so on. So we can fix blood sugar, which is very fixable. And I've worked with hundreds of clients that come to me with type 2 diabetes, and we've brought them all the way down into really healthy blood sugar range without the use of metformin or other medication. And that's going to extend their life by 5 to 10 years because we've improved their blood sugar, their sensitivity to insulin, the way the body uptakes foods, and the way you're not going to very easily be able to store body fat because you process foods as they should be. So taking a morning reading gives you a snapshot as to that. Now, your morning reading will perhaps change, so it's worth taking a couple of readings in the morning. You need to do it on a fasted stomach, so just drink some water, nothing with anything that's got sweeteners in even, or sugars, because that can affect the blood sugar reading. Even though it's got no actual sugar in, the falseness of the artificial sweeteners can still trick your body to produce insulin thinking it's had sugar. So that's keen to know. And you'll see people sometimes that diet on diet drinks, and some sort of coaches out there will say that you should never have an artificial sweetened beverage, a Diet Coke and a Diet 7-Up or whatever, because it will still give your blood sugar a spike. And that, if you've got high insulin from a blood sugar spike, it's very difficult to burn body fat. So I do understand that. I think, however, my take on that side of things after 30 years is the reality of life, in my opinion, is you'll get fat or won't drop body fat if you do keep fluctuating and eating sugar to really bring your blood sugar up. However, the one caveat that sort of trumps everything in most cases is going to be calories in, calories out. So if your calories that you're taking in are less than the calories you're burning or what you do in a day, you by law, you have to lose weight in most cases. So if you go by that standpoint, having your Diet Coke or sugar-free drink, if it means you're not going to break your diet and binge because you've got a sweet tooth and perhaps in the evening you're thinking, I fancy something sweet, but it's not, I don't want to get fat and I don't want it to affect my blood sugar reading in the morning, because sugars in the evening will certainly do that, or high carbohydrates that are simply processed would do that as well. What can I have? I need something a Diet Coke, a Diet Fanta. I've always got those in my fridge. Now, I'm a Pepsi Max guy, to be honest, not a Diet Coke. If you're a Diet Coke fan or a Pepsi Max fan, please just drop me a comment, because I have this ongoing argument with my partner where she thinks Diet Coke's the G and I'm completely into Pepsi Max, and Diet Coke to me is bleh. I still would drink it, but not if there's a Pepsi Max on the table. So where are you on that conundrum? So in my fridge, I'll always have some Pepsi Max, and cherries, obviously the GOAT, if you know, and some Diet Fanta or Clear 7-Up. But I won't have one of them every day, but I will be happy to comfortably have one every day should I need to, want to, fancy a change of flavour, fancy something to refresh me when water sometimes doesn't in the heat that we've had recently. However, if you've listened to this and you think, oh, Neale says that he's been coaching 30 years and diet drinks are fine, please don't drink 2 litres of diet drinks every day. That's not good. There are a lot of artificial sweeteners. There is a lot of gas in these drinks, and they will cause inflammation and bloating. Now, I had one client that was a bodybuilding client that was competing for a show, and we're in the last hard yards of a competition prep, and he was several weeks out, looking better every week, but struggling with the difficultness of the last 3 or 4 weeks. And if you've competed in bodybuilding, it's not for everyone. It's very hard. And this was before the days of GLP-1s. Like now, if you've got an appetite, you can just shut it off with a drug. Going back these days, we didn't have that. We had caffeine, maybe ephedrine as our appetite suppressants. But you can't be ramming caffeine and ephedrine, which are both stimulants, in the evenings when most people get the cravings, because you won't sleep. And like I said at the start of the video, how important sleep is. So there's lots to sort of pick up there. But with this guy, the point I'm making is we got to the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I said, it's fine. Look, if you're really struggling in the evening, have a Diet Coke. Have a diet drink. If it's going to prevent you craving or binging or breaking your diet, because he was right on the verge of like clucking like everything he sees on an advert on TV. He's just selling Dominoes or something, and every time he's in the supermarket buying his broccoli, he can smell the bakery aisle and he's going crazy. And listen, we've all been there. Have a diet drink. And then he came in like the week before the show for one of his final check-ins, and he looked completely distended, bloated, and really badly out of shape compared to where he was a couple of weeks before that. And yet he'd been checking in 2 or 3 times a week. Now, this client wasn't local, so he traveled to come and see me, but he couldn't come down every week or more than that. And this is when I used to own Crunch Gym in Waltham Abbey. And he come to see me, and he had a week before his competition. He'd been doing the check-ins. His diet was spot on. I trust this guy because he's competing. There's no point in lying to your coach regardless of what you're doing, but certainly not if you're going into a competition. You just have to be brutally upfront and honest, and that's what I've always been with any of my clients. And sometimes being brutally honest doesn't sit with people, but I'd rather someone tell me the honest truth than sugarcoat anything, because this day and age that we're in now, there's lots of snowflakes in the world, and no one can take any criticism, even if it's for their own good. So I think that does get lost in sight these days. However, this guy came in, and what had he done? He hadn't broke his diet. He hadn't changed anything. And I had to keep asking, digging questions. What something's happened. Hadn't changed anything. Hadn't changed any supplements, any food. What he had done is stopped drinking actual water and replaced it with litres, 6 litres in fact, of Diet Coke every day, because he viewed it as water, and all he heard is he could have a diet drink. It didn't mean he could replace his entire water with it. So that didn't create a great look, and very distended and bloated. So don't do that at home. But if you do need a diet drink, 100% have one. Just don't do too many in a day. And always prioritize, water. Clean, fresh, filtered water or bottled water is going to probably be the best option. Okay, so the point of this was taking the blood sugar in the morning to see where your health markers are. So if you haven't got one of these at home and it's something that interests you, I would recommend you get one of these. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but I'll put it on the screen anyway. This is a 4 or 6 Connect. So it takes your blood sugar, but if you go on their website and buy one, there's various options for them. Choose the 3-in-1 option, because for the same value as a blood sugar monitor, which is about 40 quid, it will also measure your hemoglobin and your hematocrit even. And that's going to be the velocity, the thickness of your blood, and it will show the amount of iron in your blood. And so it gives you a couple of very good data tracking readings without going to spend, tens and hundreds of pounds on actual blood tests. Now, these aren't as precise as getting a bloodlet. And if you were concerned about, the velocity of your blood, how thick your blood was, I would certainly go and get it done by someone like Clayton. But if you are monitoring it between blood tests and you're going every 6 months, then taking something like this as a at-home device that you do once a week, I think it's amazing. I recommend it to all of my clients that are looking at the data to that level. Now, data is massively important because, if you don't have the data, you can't really see what's going on underneath. Even if someone looks great on the outside, they could have visceral fat on the inside. So having the more data we have, the easier you're going to be able to see results, because you can coach accordingly. So with this data, which I'll take every morning, it will just make sure that what I'm doing, how I'm living, my lifestyle, my supplements, my food is in a good spot. If I was eating too many carbohydrates, too many simple carbohydrates, you'd probably see my morning fasted blood sugar rise. If I was using any compounds that would stress my heart and stress the velocity of my blood, you'd see the readings change here as well. So this gives you a good idea as to what's going on to a degree without having a full blood test done. And something I would certainly recommend doing once a week at least to see where you are in the morning. Remember, you have to hydrate first. So a couple of glasses of water would be great, even if you had a black coffee or two, but allow that to sit 15 minutes or so before taking your test. Then another thing I think is massively important, well worth you doing for anyone at home, and before you see any signs of issues, is take your blood pressure. So taking your blood pressure once a week, when you're rested in the morning, you haven't been running around, you're not stressed, you're going to get a pretty solid reading. You can get these online anywhere. They're not a lot of money, 15, 20 quid maybe on even Amazon. Do it, any chemist will do them. But I recently have moved off the cuff that goes on your arm for this little Omran wrist supported one. So this one just fits on your wrists and it works very well. I've compared it against the cuff, which I've also got. But with a cuff, it's like, got to get out of the box, wrap it around your arm. You might have to buy a bigger cuff if your arms are too big. And you've got to sit there and wait for the whole shebang. And it's not a lot of work. But in this day and age, what we want is super fast convenience. And this little cuff here, I can just leave on my counter in the kitchen and whack it on, put it back, takes up no room. It's not a big kerfuffle with opening boxes and strapping a thing around your arm and all the rest of it. It takes the reading very well. I would always take 2 or 3 readings of all of these things in the morning once a week and get the average. So, wait over 5 minutes, take 2 or 3 readings, take the average of the 3, because even these things, as good as they are, and these are very good branded ones, they can vary. It will also vary with a cuff, by the way, depending on where your hand is. So it needs to be in line with your heart. If you're ever going to use one of these, make sure you're sat with your elbow rested on the side like this and your wrist is in line with your heart. And you want about 1 centimetre away from your wrist edge where the cuff is sat. It's as simple as that. Press the button and away you go. And it can even save the data so you can compare against your last. So that's something I would do every Saturday morning to check. Then I would go in my gym garage, and every morning I do fasted cardio. I'll always have 1 or 2 black coffees before I go. I catch up with some check-ins and some work in the morning. So it's a slower start for me on a Saturday. I can take an hour really to have coffees, take these tests, and set up for a check-in day, because my check-ins often come over on a Friday. Some run on to Saturday. I like to get them all done before I then do the cardio, do my own photo check-ins, which I'll layer on the screen here so you can see where I'm at. Now, I'm not in the competition. I'm looking to compete again towards the end of this year, but this is like my lean gain season, I would say. I don't do an off season anymore. I just do a position where, as long as I'm eating well and I'm staying fairly lean and my workouts are productive and I can see strength improve without getting fat, that's where I like to be. Because I think you need to be in shape because your health markers are in a far better position if your body fat's low. I don't want to be bloated. I don't want to be distended. I don't want to be in 10,000 calories or maybe 5,000 calories, which is what I might have done in the past. Now my typical calorie balance is somewhere between 3,500 to 4,000 calories. That gives me ample energy. I stay fairly lean and it gives me freedom to eat out at least once a week with my family. And I think that's massively important and lost today as well in some situations. I think that it's important, what I've learned in 30 years of bodybuilding and competing and coaching, is that you have to enjoy the journey. Don't just look at the destination. You know, lots of clients will check in, they don't see results this week. They want to see results yesterday. But really what you're missing when you look at that is you're missing the journey. You're missing what you're doing, the fundamentals that you put in every day, your work ethic. You know, how proud of you should be for getting up on time, doing your cardio on time, going to the gym, prepping your meals, eating your food. If you do that every day, but really pat yourself on the back for doing that and embrace the journey, when you get to that final destination, that reward is far greater. You know, I often hear and see lots of people that just want the result without actually adapting and enjoying or believing in the process. So like when we started going back before all the GLPs and before all the online guys that were giving a lot of information out, you were just doing this alone. It was you against you. You would push yourself as hard as you could. Every day was a journey that you would then get to the end of and appreciate you ticked every box that you needed to that day. And then over the course of time, being consistent, layering that day after day, week on week, you'd eventually see a result. And that result was all you. That result was all you. And you might have struggled. You might have had to grafted at times. And you might have been very tired on that journey at certain points. But the reward for getting there was absolutely 10 times better than it is today. When I see people that have lost 20, 30, 40 pounds using the GLP because they've just shut their appetite off. They haven't learned anything to improve their lifestyle. They've not changed the food choices because they've not had to diet. They've just stopped eating as much because their body's not asking for it. They haven't learned how to improve their health markers with anything other than taking a drug. And I think that GLPs are fantastic for a lot of people. I've got nothing bad to say about GLPs, but you need to look at the fundamentals that got you to the place where you're unhappy enough to take them in the first place. Because you can't take a GLP forever. You can't take these drugs for life. And remember that the studies are very new on them and we don't know the long-term effects of these drugs. But the short-term win sometimes will be outdone by the long-term result. And so what you do need to do is learn healthy eating. You need to learn about feeding your gut microbiome. You need to look at your plates of food and put all the colors of the rainbow on them, because if you do that, you're going to set yourself up for a really healthy internal body, which will show on the outside, in your skin, in your hair, in your glow, and in your body fat. And so when you get to a point where you've got used to not eating as much due to the GLPs, you'll have built a foundation and built new habits that you'll continue to eat this way, this healthy way. And unfortunately, people will use GLPs for a very short period of time to get to a holiday or to lose a bit of weight for a function. They haven't built any habits. They haven't changed their habits. They've just eaten less. So when they stop using it, they just go back to where they was before, because they're still eating the bad way we have in the past. So learn how to eat. And I think that's really perhaps where coaching after 30 years still really helps people, because, you know, with today's society where everyone's soft and everyone can take a drug to shut their appetite up, or they can go onto any AI agent and ask it what to eat, how to train, what exercise to do. They still are not learning the fundamentals of changing habits because they haven't had the accountability in order to do so. And people still have the mentality of, oh, well, I'll start again Monday. I'll try and get better this Monday, and then often don't. But where coaching really stands out, I think will always be there, is because the accountability with your coach, checking in, giving the data, seeing how the feedback was for the week, looking at your health markers like I am today, will keep you accountable to ensure that you do keep consistent and you do make those habits last. So if you've not tried coaching, then by all means reach out to me. I've got several coaches that work under me in the UK, and I've also got a business in Dubai doing the same thing with coaches there. Now, I do coach just a small amount of clients myself if I've got a space available. So if it was something that interested you, then just reach out and leave a message. Probably the best way to do that is through Instagram at Neale Cranwell, and give me your information. Let's have a little health audit to see where you are, where you're trying to get to. And then if coaching looks like you'll be the right fit for coaching and coaching could be the right fit for you, we could have a quick discovery call to see exactly where you want to go and then align the best coach to work with you. It may even be myself. So until next time, hopefully this has give some information. Trying to put these posts up a little bit more frequently on YouTube, but I always end up going on a tangent from where I decided I was going to start. So hopefully it's helped someone out there. And if it has, please share, please like, please subscribe, and try and push this to other people that may benefit from some of the advice on it. And I'll see you on the journey.